Hi class. Today we're going to dissect a sheep's brain. It's very small. Sheeps are dumb. So what we're going to do is dissect the brain. First thing you need to know is that truly a sheep's brain is very similar to a human brain, just a lot smaller. So we're going to start with the outer covering of the sheep's brain, which is called the dura mater. You're going to have to, it's very tough, and you'll notice that when you start to remove it, you've got to be careful that you don't destroy what's underneath it. So if you remember, if some of you actually removed the pericardium off the sheep's heart, well, the brain is probably about the same texture and the same toughness. But when you're going to use this, you want to make sure that you do not, like I said before, don't destroy any of the tissue underneath. Once you get the dura mater off, you're going to see that the brain is actually, it's almost like butter. You can cut it like butter. Don't eat it. So you're going to come around here, and you'll notice that there's some very important structures here that you really do not want to tear. You don't want to remove, so be very careful when you come down to this section. We're going to do section at a time. Primarily what you're seeing once you uncover this and take it off is going to be the largest part of the brain in the human and even the sheep is the cerebrum. And then the smaller structure is called the cerebellum. But we'll get to that. So you need to pay attention to this because you're only going to remove, you're not going to go inside the brain yet. Okay, you're just going to get rid of the dura mater on the external structures. I notice it's missing something there. Okay. There you go. I'm kind of missing one of the optic nerves. I don't know where it went. Okay, so you're going to do this. Cut around it. And be very gentle with this because I don't know what happened to it, but I think it was right there. All right, so let's just do this first. Let's not do this part of it yet. I just need to make sure that I can get all of this off without destroying the structures underneath. Okay, we're going to leave this, and it goes. So what we're going to do, we're going to start just with the cerebrum. So you've already removed the dura mater. And I'm just going to put a pin there. You all will put numbers on these structures, but I'm not going to give you all the numbers. You're going to find them out on your own. Okay, so let's get the rest of this off. That's part of the dura mater, not all of it. And I'm going to see if I can get it off without totally. Yep. I think I already cut part of my glove. All right. So now you're going to look. This is the ventral surface of the brain. So whether we're going to go to the first or second, whatever, but you're going to need to know that this major part, all of this is all the cerebrum, which is the bulk of the brain. Okay, so when you come down and look at that, it is divided nearly in two, almost equal parts, by the longitudinal fissure. A fissure is a deep crevice, and it divides the brains into hemispheres, from the right to the left hemisphere. Okay, so this line right here is going to be the longitudinal fissure. And there it is, okay? So you've already seen the cerebrum, the longitudinal fissure, and the dura mater. Then we're ready to go over the different lobes of the brain. So this goes right along with the skull. So if you remember what color the skull, the frontal bone was, in your diagram, the frontal bone was yellow, okay? I hope I have all the right colors. So the frontal lobe is right here in the front of the brain, obviously. The one that comes right behind it and on top of your brain, you colored green. and that was the parietal, if you remember that, okay? Then you come to the side right here of the brain, and if you remember that one, you colored that one orange, and that is going to be the temporal lobe. Okay, there you go on that. And then the one in the very back of your brain, which is your visual cortex, is going to be the occipital. And this part right here almost feels like you're cutting through bone. That's how tough the dura mater is. It's extremely tough. That's why it's called dura mater. Actually means tough mother in Latin, and it's a tough mother. All right, so we're going to get that so you can actually see the occipital lobe. All right, so if, I don't know, I don't have brown, but if you recall, the occipital lobe, or that was right here in the back. So let's just put pink on that. Okay, and that's the occipital. Okay, so this is all so far on the outside. Now, be very careful to remove the dura mater, because you're going to see the smaller part of the brain. And so I'm going to very carefully remove the mater off of the cerebellum. And whether I can do this with gloves on, I do not know, because it is not easy. So you can at least see it. Okay, well, let me try this. This is a spinal cord. Okay, there we go. So if you could come up through this and very carefully peel this section off. Okay. I hope you notice how carefully I'm doing this, because I really don't want to lose any part of this. I think once I get it loose from there, I think it'll come off. All right. Ooh. I just can't wear these gloves. Sorry, kids. I can't work with gloves on. I can't get any, I'm free. I just can't do it, because I really don't want to get this messed up. All right, so here we have the dura mater mostly off of this structure, which is the cerebellum, which actually means little brain. All right. And sometimes it isn't all that important to get all of these things off. I'd rather you not get them off and not destroy the structures underneath. Okay, so that's, to me, good enough for now. So when you're looking here, well, there's a little more mater there. And don't gross out, because I'm not wearing gloves, you know me. All right, so this smaller area right here is actually known as the cerebellum. All right, there's your cerebellum. So we have all of these so far, all right? So now we're gonna turn to the ventral surface, which looks like this. You actually have two of these, but I think I got rid of the other one on the dura mater, okay? But it's okay, because I'm gonna stick a pin in there so you'll know. So starting with the front of the brain, you see these two long, very large things, and these are called olfactory lobes, all right? They are the sense of smell for the sheep. Okay, so I hope you can see them. All right, there you go. Those are called olfactory lobes or olfactory bulbs. It just depends on who you're speaking with. Okay, then you're going to come here, and you will see two of these. One is here, one is here, okay? These are the optic nerves, okay? Obviously, they are leading to your eyes. All right, so your optic nerve is here, and there should be one over here, but I'm not going to mess with it. All right, then the optic nerves actually go into an area where they cross over. So the right optic nerve crosses over and goes to the left eye, and the left optic nerve crosses over and goes to the right eye. And that is the optic chiasma, which chiasma, it looks like chiasma, but that is actually means cross. in Latin. And that's it, right in the center there. Okay, so there's that. Then you come underneath it and you're going to see a little round ball thing right here. Let me take that pin out. And you're going to see this right here. This is the pituitary gland. I know you've all heard of the pituitary gland, so that's it, which is this structure right here. Okay? Now, I think pretty much now you're going to see, then you're going to come down below this. Below the cerebellum, you're going to have all of this right here is considered the brain stem. So you're going to have several structures in the brain stem. You're going to start with the pons. The pons are kind of a bulbous thing that's at the very top of it, which is right here. Then it's going to go and you're going to have the midbrain. Oops. And then you've all heard of the medulla oblongata, okay, which is there. This is all part of the brain stem. Then the very last going down into your body is going to be the spinal cord. And if you'll notice, this is a spinal cord, how thick it is. But the spinal cord is very thick, very tough. Not as tough as you think, but still. So there is your spinal cord. Now moving right along, you're ready to divide this in half. Okay, so are y'all ready? So now you're going to take a scalpel and go back, and this is also tricky. So I will start at the frontal part of the brain. You have a longitudinal fissure to guide you. So you're going to take your scalpel, and it really is easy to cut through this because it's not a muscle, it's primarily cholesterol and fat. You're going to come through right through the middle and very carefully cut through the cerebellum also. Cut through this, and you should be able to open it up like this. The only thing is, let me get rid of this. This is hindering me, so I've got to get rid of this, all right? Okay, so you're going to kind of open this up like a book, and you will divide it into two sides, okay? So starting, I'm going to cut the whole thing in half so I only have half a brain. Sometimes I wonder if y'all have half a brain, or even a quarter of your brain. So we're going to open this up and just cut it in two. So you and your lab partner can each have a half a brain. Won't they be fun? So you're going to, like here, and I'm only going to use, you only need half a brain to find out where everything is. What I like you to look at, so let's start with what we're actually looking at. So the center part is an area that, if you notice, you see it, and you're going to have a diagram too. It's white, well, kind of, okay? And that is called the corpus callosum. And this is what sends messages from one side of your brain to the other side of your brain. And it's right here, okay? Now I want you to notice something else here, and I don't know whether I'm going to ask you to do it or not, because you see these openings here? This is where spinal fluid is. Cerebral spinal fluid is in all these little cavities right here. But I'm not sure you can actually see that. So I'm going to leave that out for now and go jump over to the fornix. Because the fornix is underneath the corpus callosum. It is kind of the base of the corpus callosum, which is about right here. Because then you're going to see another round object, more or less, which is called the thalamus. And I know you've heard of the thalamus. And that's right here. Okay? And then you have your spinal, you have the spinal cord is here, then you have the medulla oblongata, then this is all brain stem. All right? And I don't think I'm going to have you do the hypothalamus because I don't think you're going to be able to see it. So if you want to label the pons, the midbrain, the medulla, you can do it again on this view. and then the spinal cord, and then the spinal cord. But you don't really have to do that, I don't think. Okay, the other important thing is a transverse fissure. That is what separates the cerebrum from the cerebellum. So I think I'd like you to know that one too. That's called a transverse fissure. And you can tell it's just an opening. The ventricles are where all the spinal fluid is. When you actually get, it's kind of hard to see them, and the third ventricle is here, the fourth ventricle is here. I don't know if I'm going to actually have you label that, because I just want you to know that it's there, because it's harder to see. And then you've got your longitudinal fissure, which is in between these two, like that. That's it right there. The other thing I kind of like you to know, I mean, I don't kind of, that sounds silly, but I really want you to know what the cerebellum really looks like inside and how it looks. It has these little tree-like things that are very interesting, and that is called the arbor vitae. The arbor vitae means vital tree, and they look like little branches from a tree. Not as much on this particular sheep's brain, but you will be able to see it very clearly. And if you really get close in, you can actually see it. And this is part of the cerebellum, and it's very interesting looking. Got it? Okay, now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to, after you finish all of this, you're going to have numbers for all of these. And I think all in all, you have 24, 25, and 26 numbers, which really seems like a lot, but when you're doing it, it isn't. So you can see my final thing I'd like you to see. Once you have all this done, then you can separate the two. Oop, don't want to do that like that. You're going to take a cross section of the occipital lobe, such as this is. This is so amazing. When you do that, you're going to see that you have white matter and you have gray matter. Okay? The white matter obviously is lighter in color, and the gray matter is darker. You know, you've heard these. One of these is for transference of electronic messages, and the other is personality. This is you. And all of this is on the outer part of the cerebrum. You can see this right now, all the gray matter. All this gray matter is all on the outside. This is what you are. Okay? Other things I might want to show you on the sheep's brain. And I was going to have you label that too, but I think you've already done enough. You notice that all these little gray squiggly things are actually called sulci. It's like a sulcus. It's like a very narrow fissure. The raised portion of the brain are called gyri, or eri probably, but G-Y-R-I. The fissures, or the sulci, are the more intelligent animals have many, many sulci, and they're real deep. And I used to tell my kids, the more intelligent you become, the deeper your sulci become. So if you had a guess as to what the sheep, how is the sheep's cognitive abilities? Now you may read that it says that sheep are really smart. If you compare a sheep to a human, no, not so smart, because their brains are almost smooth, which means they have very few sulci. The more sulci, the greater it makes your brain have much more areas so it can receive messages. So that's what makes them what they are. Other thing about a sheep is that they have an amazing sense of smell. So when you look at a human brain, which you're not going to be able to dissect a human brain, but you need to be thinking about who would have a better sense of smell? A sheep, a dog, a wolf, or a human? Of those four, you be thinking which one has the weakest sense of smell, which one has the strongest sense of smell, and why. This is when I know that you're thinking. So I think really and truly I've gone pretty much through all that you really need to know. And then when you go, you look back at my little pins and you listen to me, and it will really help you. I can't think of anything else. The sheep wants to say thank you because he was murdered so you could have a brain to dissect. He actually was murdered probably because they sold him for meat. But you never know. So that's all, folks.